And we're live. We've been live for 2 seconds, apparently.
Oh, good for you.
Okay. All right. So here we go. All right. So I want to welcome everybody who is going to watch this later or watching it now. We are having the second of our three-part conversation on submission. That's wicked evil word. And it's exciting to not be here by myself. Last week, Shireen Edwards Fairman joined me. We had a great conversation. But this week, we have Renford Jeffrey, Jason Monroe, and Shoshana Williams joining. We also have Michelle Walker. She's going to be joining us shortly. Michelle is actually in traffic. So when she gets in, we're going to give her the stage and let her party and do whatever she has to do. But I just want to introduce everybody really quickly and give everybody a chance to, share a little bit about themselves or whatever they want to share. So Renford, why don't you start us off and we'll just go clockwise on the screen.
Hi, yes, my name is Renford Jeffrey. I spent 37 years working in addictions and mental health, 7 in Jamaica, and then I emigrated to Canada at the age of 30, and I spent 30 years working in addictions and mental health forensic, working with severely mentally ill clients with comorbidities and homelessness and the extreme end of the mental health spectrum. And in addition to that, I've done extensive volunteer work in Canada, Jane and Finch, and all these other areas in inner cities, And over 1 year ago, I came back. I call it. I don't call it a retirement. I call it reassignment. So I'm reassigned back to Jamaica, and I'm actively involved right now, doing so many things in the community, but primarily focusing on children and youth at risk in the inner city community. So this is exactly what I'm doing right now. In addition to working with people with homelessness, mental illness, and all this stuff, the need is great in Jamaica. So anybody want to join me? Welcome. There's room. Okay, so that's it for me.
Me?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, sure. So I'm Jason Monroe. I'm a coach. I work with young people who are struggling with challenges like ADHD, autism, anxiety, some other issues with being organized, that kind of thing. I also do relationship coaching, helping couples or people who are getting to the point where they're not sure they're going to be a couple anymore, and that's a hard transition also. So those are the areas I work in. I've been doing coaching full-time now for 3 years, but I've been working with people off and on in my part-time life maybe for almost 20 years. So this was an interesting subject, just talking about submission and whether it goes both ways and what it means to people. That's it for me. Over to you.
Okay, so my name is Shoshana Williams, and I am a real estate agent. I live in the Atlanta area, but I am licensed in Massachusetts and the state of Georgia. And I do some international transactions as well. Would love to do some more in Jamaica, though, Renford. That being said, I just love this topic and this discussion. The reason I wanted to be a part of it once I received the invitation is because I think it's just something that's so misunderstood and so misconstrued. And I think that just having different voices and being able to openly and respectfully have conversations around hard topics is just something that's just necessary and needed. And so I just really wanted to be a part of that. And so I appreciate the invite, and I'm happy to be here, happy to meet everybody on the panel. And I'm looking forward to hearing and the different views and sharing, thoughts and ideas.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, I have a little bit of a issue with my throat, but I hope you can hear me okay. My name is Shireen Edwards Fairman, and I joined the talk last week. I am the owner of Empress Business Solutions, and I do change management is my specialty, but I'm also in the process of launching Healed Woman Purpose. And I feel that this particular topic was something about submission was interesting to me because of the fact that it comes with transition. It comes with, changing your mindset. And I know we spoke about that last week about, a lot about what that actually means and what it can affect in the future. And what I found is that, even healing from some of the past things helps you to understand a lot of these topics and be able to contribute and to be able to learn from them. And I'm very a big advocate for having these kind of difficult or controversial conversations because it's not just to have a say and talk about it, but to hopefully learn and to be able to grow for them. So I really excited to be a part of this talk again. I'm not going to probably speak as much as I did last week, but I'm really looking forward to hearing everyone's point of view and their view, and hopefully to learn something new and to be able to share in this conversation again this week. Thank you.
Awesome. We also have Michelle Walker, who's going to be joining us. I think she was just online, but she's traveling, so she's probably going to be bouncing in and out until she's actually home. When she does get in, we'll just introduce her and get going. But thank you, everybody. Yeah, just to be clear, I did ask and beg everybody to be here because I was really impressed with through the course of the conversations I've been posting to cause disruption, if you will. I've been impressed with the viewpoints, thoughts, and everything that you guys have really shared. And I really felt this is a conversation from many voices. So I'm glad that you were all able to be here and were able to make the time. That said, let's jump into it. So basically what we're talking about, yes, is we're talking about the word submission, but more so the act of submission and the importance of it on a societal level. For me, the goal of this show is that we help to change the narrative of what that word means in people's minds. And that said, I want to start off with Jason because he couldn't make it last week, but he did send me some information that I felt was important. We're going to actually get to the point of this show at one point. I think we'll wait till Michelle joins us. And at that point, we'll get to the point of the show, which is the question of, does submission go both ways, specifically in relationships, romantic relationships. But I believe we're going to expand that as well. So Jay, why don't you hop in and throw out some stuff.
So when you talked to me about it initially, the first thing that jumped into my head about the word submission is that for a lot of people, it's triggering, and there's literally a physical reaction that people go through when they hear the word submission, not for no reason. It comes along with a history of, if we wanted to get into capitalism, we could get into slavery, we could get into misogyny, all of these things where people misuse the term submission to get their way with a group of people to move their own narrative ahead, right? So when people hear submission, if you believe in generational trauma, the ancestors are sitting there going, no, don't listen to them because this is what they use. But even if you just believe in what people have been through in their life, if you've worked with churches in the church, you may have had somebody misuse it to try and get you to do something. People survive abusive relationships where typically, sorry guys, the man has used the term and what's called proof texting to say, you got to do what I want because submission. Consent doesn't exist in our relationship. This is just going to be my way or the highway. The idea of partnership is foreign to this concept. I know we'll get into the romantic part of it later. So in any partnership, whether it's a business partnership, whether it's a professional partnership, the idea of submission in better run companies at this point is not foreign, because without submission, you don't hire experts. There's no point in hiring a change manager or a real estate agent or a therapist because you already know everything you need to know to progress and do well in life. Why would I listen to anybody else's expertise? Where the reason that we partner, to use the term loosely, not romantically, with people, is because in a group, there's many experts. There's many different ways of thinking and even different physical attributes. And you submit to the person. If I was selling a house, I wouldn't be out here paying an agent to not listen to them and their wisdom. If I go to a therapist, I'm going to be very interested in the things that they have to say about how my thoughts and feelings are working. And if I'm hiring a change manager, because I want to get from point A to point B in my company, and I want someone to come with a process that makes sense for me. And if I sit there, I'm a person alone. I'm only reliant on my wisdom. And I think the most expensive way to gain wisdom is through learning through hard knocks for every single step of the way and never learning from anybody else and their experience. So I think submission does have, in my opinion, submission has to go both ways. I understand the biblical context, but I think JP got into more last week than I probably need to today. But I think there's that idea, if you're a Christian and you're familiar with scripture, or even if you're just familiar with scripture, of submission throughout the Bible. But if you looked at it in context, I believe even in the Bible, it bears out that it doesn't mean that I get to beat you up and you do what I want. That's as much as I would say about it.
Okay. I just want to jump in there real quick. So what I have rolling across the screen is the actual definition that I pulled up from Google, Merriam-Webster, Oxford. I mean, they all, dictionaries are dictionaries for the most part. If anybody has an issue with that definition, they can Google their own. What I want to focus on, though, the action or fact of accepting or yielding, right? So there's accepting or yielding. And this is where Shireen and I actually broke it down, and I felt it was really important. There's three components: a superior force, or to the will, or to the authority. And what I found is when you break it down like that, it really I think Jay, you brought up a point about the church, and definitely I understood submission first from Christian doctrine. I really did. Many years ago, before I was even a Christian, before I even considered the concept. And for me, it was actually something that I had practiced before encountering the word, because I was in the military, right? And in the military, that is where you see, so we have force, will, authority. And within the military, you see authority. Within society, on a societal level, we see authority. Within relationships, we see will. And within on the street, maybe you see a superior force. So like that's Jay and I were walking down the street, and I'm walking one way and he's walking the other, and I'm like, move. And he's a big guy. We're both the same, we're about the same size, a little bit, maybe a little bit taller. So it's like, in that context, it's more of a superior force, if you will, and will. There's a combination there. But I guess what I'm saying is there's different contexts in which the word can be the expression and the behavior can be manifested. And I think within each context, there's a different consequence. And I think, so what we deal with, at least for myself, what I deal with a lot of is the negative aspects of submission come about definitely within the context of authority. And I think the biblical model has a degree of authority, because God, biblically, it's man has authority over the woman, but as well, there is the concept of the will. And so within the context of submission is the woman's will, man's authority, because the woman doesn't have authority over the man, but she definitely has a will. And so I sort of want to sort of, in this conversation, let's sort of, if we can, just sort of break those down, maybe have a little conversation around those. I just want to throw that out there, and whoever has a thought about that.
Yeah, maybe let me kind of get involved. As you know, I'm in Jamaica, and when it comes to submission and authority, it's a huge issue, and I know I am very mindful of what I'm gonna say, but I understand that all of us on the panel, we are like Black, we're Afro. And there's an issue with when it comes to submission and authority. Like there's an abuse of authority in many spheres, and it shows itself up in personal relationship, like husband and wife. It shows itself up when it comes to people in position of power. It's that there is a misuse of authority to force people into submission, and I see, like, every day it's evident in the church. I've been in church for over 40 years. I've been a Christian, and you see it where you are told what to do. Even everything is prescribed on. I came from the background of a Pentecostal church where, I mean, you're told everything, and you don't have even a say, basically speaking. And the problem that I have with that is that it doesn't even fit the legal definition or the definition of what the Bible is talking about. So people have taken it way out. And I recognize the fact that just because something is a part of the Christian culture is acceptable, it doesn't mean that it's actually biblical. So the submission is such a problem. I'm sure you are familiar with this incident that took place in Montego Bay, where this pastor, the people were so submitted to this man to the point that he actually instructed them to slash each other's throat and all kind of extreme. So submission can take it can take to the very far extreme. And the most dangerous situation with somebody said, I'm talking for God, and I represent God, and you must submit to me. It can go really off board. But this morning, I actually was reflecting on the fact that submission is essential for everything. We can't have an orderly society without a form of submission and taking place, or we say yielding. For example, you go on the plane, you have to yield to the pilot. And you go on a bus or on the street in Jamaica, you are driving. There, you have to yield to the fact that the law says you must drive on the left-hand side, and you cannot drive on the right. So in order for society to function normally and appropriately, submission or yielding is very essential. And so it is in the home. Like also, I was talking to somebody last night about mutual submission, and I liken it to a bicycle. It has two pedals. One could be the husband and one, but the whole idea of them yielding to each other is that it is necessary for the bicycle to go in to move forward, to progress. So if the left foot doesn't yield to the right foot, and we cannot move forward. So if the left foot say, you know what, I'm not cooperating with you, I'm not going to yield to you, I'm going to just stay right here, the bicycle not going to go anywhere. So submission is mutual. And last week I said something, I'm going to finish now, that I believe in mutual understanding where you come together, because everybody brings something to the table. So some husband may think that they know more than the wife, or the wife knows more than the husband. But guess what? Everybody has their skill set, their gifts and ability. So I am of the belief, and I practice it in my life, where I sit down and make mutual decisions. For many times, maybe the wife knows more than the husband, or the other partner or whatever knows more than each other. And it makes sense for you to listen to them. Like, for example, if they can budget better than you and save money, yield. It doesn't matter whether you're the man or the woman. The ladies have a role to play. And let me say right now, I grew up with my mother all my life. So I'm kind of pro ladies when it comes to, I understand the plight of women. I came from a single parent. And I just want to say one thing more before I, close for now. But God has actually caused me to come across quite a few females who are actually going through the process of divorce and abuse. And I actually work with them as if I was their husband, not being sexually involved with them, just being there for them, cut lawn, go grocery shopping, and all of them coming from a case of abuse. And where they're coming out from abuse, and they can't do it successfully unless they have some measure of support. So even up to this day, I have some very, very close female friends that still talk to me like on a daily basis, because I actually helped to get them out of abusive situation that they have been in for years and couldn't escape. So it's a huge problem. And I think this is a conversation that we should have on a basis, situation that they have been in for years and couldn't escape. So it's a huge problem. And I think this is a conversation that we should have on a basis, situation that they have been in for years and couldn't escape. So it's a huge problem. And I think this is a conversation that we should have on a basis, situation that they have been in for years and couldn't escape. So it's a huge problem. And I think this is a conversation that
Yes, there is some feedback. I can hear the feedback.
Sorry. Was I the only one who heard that?
No, I'm
No, I
hearing.
heard it too.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's something going on with the mics there, and I don't know if it's my signal.
It
Can you
can
mute
also
your?
be that people have multiple devices going.
Yes. Maybe let me turn off my phone.
That's what it is. If you
Okay,
have
so-
multiple devices going, it will give you feedback that is
Yeah.
with a lag.
So Renford,
turn off my
I sort of had to.
Yes, there is some feedback.
There's feedback. Is somebody listening to you on a device there?
No, not nearby. Nobody. Yeah. Let me see if anybody in the other room.
It can also be that people have multiple devices.
Okay, there's feedback. Is somebody listening to you on a device there?
No, not nearby.
Okay, I just muted.
Let me see if any.
Okay, how are we now? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's no delay right now.
Okay, I muted Renford.
Somebody in the other room.
It can also be that people have multiple devices.
Okay, so I'm hearing feedback here.
But
Okay,
there's a loop also, not just feedback.
there is
There's
a loop. There isn't there?
Yeah.
There is a loop.
It's almost like someone's listening to it on Facebook Watch while you're going. Do you have it on somewhere? Turn it off if you do.
Okay, how are we now? Okay, let me see here. Let me first of all add
But there's a loop.
there's a
Also,
loop.
not just feedback.
There is a loop. Okay. Okay, hang on one second. Let me add Michelle. And there isn't there. There is a loop. Okay,
It's
there
almost
is.
like someone's listening to it on Facebook Watch while
Okay.
you're going.
Okay, give me 1 second here. Let's see here. All right, how is this now?
I think we're good.
Could everybody hear me?
Yes, good on my end.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
It's good on my end.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so I know the problem now. The problem was that Michelle wasn't here. Because as soon as Michelle showed up,
Stop.
we could hear each other. So Renford, you got to repeat that whole thing. No, I'm kidding. Michelle, I want to welcome everybody to Michelle Walker. She's here with us. Michelle was in traffic. Michelle, we have Renford at the top, Jason Monroe, Shireen Edwards Fairman, and Shoshana Williams in
Hello.
Florida. And so we just had a little bit of a glitch there, which was quite interesting. It could be a browser that opened up here. So I will take ownership of that. But in any event, there were a couple of things that you said there, Renford, but I'm going to have Michelle introduce herself and just Michelle, we basically just said whatever we wanted to say about ourselves, so you can say who you are, whatever you want to say, and then you can throw out a couple of thoughts about your thoughts on submission. And I qualified the conversation by saying that I asked everybody to be here based on the statements that they made and the conversations they had. Michelle is the only difference as well. Jason is my boy, but Michelle, she kept challenging me, and I was like, yo, that's always a good thing. So so welcome, Michelle, and take it away.
Oh my gosh, it's been on the spot. Well, my name's Michelle. I live in Ajax. I work in Toronto with the Toronto District School Board. And yeah, I'm working from home until the end of the week, which is, let's see what happens next week. With regards to submission, I don't in particular like that word, as I mentioned before. I feel like back in the early days, like in the days when, when God created this earth, that submission was to mean that you honor your spouse as how God would honor you, how God would honor the church, So, but as time went on, that disappeared. Submission became as, oh yeah, you're my property. You need to do what I say. You got to go where I go, and that's where I have a problem with submission now, is in today's society, submission does not have the same meaning as what God intended. So for me, when people say submission, I always tell them the proper language for me is mutual respect and understanding. And that's it for now.
Yeah, you did actually post that, and I disagreed with you, but I mean, you know, we're still here.
Yeah.
And let me. So I mean, I want this conversation to be just what it is. I don't want people to agree with me necessarily, but I want to speak to that really quickly because I think Jason brought up the point of the problem with the word, and I think that, you know, just for the sake of catch up, we'll just take a minute to just focus on that. And the reason I don't agree, Michelle, is this. I completely agree that the word submission has been used outside of within the context of a biblical within the context of a biblical construct. It has been used to really manage women by men. I'll say it that way. Control is probably a more accurate word. Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. And I believe there's a lot of men out there, and I'll say men because I hold us responsible generally. I believe there's a lot of men out there walking around expecting women to submit to them and saying you need to submit to me without them loving the woman. And the reason I quote this all started with a post that I put up that said if a man doesn't love his wife, if a man doesn't submit to his wife, he doesn't love her. And I put that up fully. I meant every word of it. I still do. I stand behind it. And the reason why is because most of my audience has a Judeo-Christian background, right? And within the context of my speech, it's generally understood. Those who don't, submission still applies because I believe submission is not a biblical term. It is not a religious term. It is a social term. When we socialize, we have to come to agreement, and we come to agreement under the construct of laws and regulations and rules. So, for example, when Jason and I are out, there's things that we don't do. There's things that we do based on our history, our friendship, and our agreement. And that, in order for us to move together, we have to submit to one another from time to time. We have to yield, if you will, to one another from time to time. You know, some of us have been single, some of us have been married. You take a woman out on a date. Before she goes out on a date or you go ask her out, you have certain things that you understand. You have certain agreements that you make, like this isn't going to happen, this isn't going to happen. And then one of the other person has to decide to submit to that, or let's use the word yield. The reason I have the problem with the word respect is that respect is more of a posture, I feel, and less of an action. And submission is more of an action. Submission is something that you can identify and see, whereas I feel respect is more of a heart condition, Michelle. I mean, I see your face there. I see your brow wrinkling. I don't know what you think about that. But, you know, so I think when I say mutual respect, I have a lot of people who respect me, right? And the Bible calls a woman to respect her husband, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know if you respecting somebody means that you have to yield to them or submit to them. And when I use the word submit, especially in a relationship, I believe that men have to yield to their wives. And I had somebody actually challenge that, and she said, "Where is it in the Bible?" And I said, "Well, it's not anywhere in the Bible that a husband has to submit to his wife. It says that, you know, within the congregation, the Christians submit to one another." But it's not like I believe that it's not actually laid out in the Bible because it doesn't need to be, because within the context of 1 Corinthians 13, when the definition of biblical love is laid out, you see submission at play there as well. I did find a scripture that I thought was relevant, which I think it empowers women to a degree. And I'm scrolling it across the bottom here. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband in the same way the husband does not have authority over his own body, but yields it to his wife, right? And Paul wrote that to the Corinthian church. So what I'm saying is within the context of biblical marriage, there is a requirement for submission on both sides, but only the woman is commanded to submit, I believe. But the husband is expected to submit as a component of loving the wife. And I think, Michelle, it speaks to what your experience is, which is definitely that men, with our authority, we have just moved away from the requirement of properly loving women, and we only look at what we benefit from. So we approach love from a selfish place overall, and from the selfish place is like what I want, as opposed to what's necessary for us. I don't know. That's my thoughts. What do you think? Does that make it easier to stomach? What? Anybody else?
I'm not going to agree with you on the whole thing. So let's get some other opinions going on.
So what I would like to share, so what is the purpose of submission, right? What is the intent behind submission? For me, the intent is agreement, right? That is what we're looking for at the end of the day. And so why? Because we say, how can two walk unless they agree? And so I think what happens, especially like in the church, I am a Christian. I'm not a Christian. I'm a follower of Christ. A whole different thing here, which I don't want to get into that because that's not the conversation we're having. And I would like to have this conversation without it becoming so religious based that we lose a broader audience. So I prefer to just use the words as they are, you know what I mean, independent of necessary scriptures that people might not get or might turn people off from wanting to listen because they'll think that we're just talking biblical, right? Because the things that we have to say in regards to submission, it applies to every relationship, regardless of what that relationship is, whether it's a boss to their subordinate or parents to children. The goal for me is that I would want for us to come into agreement. And let me explain why. Like, I'm going to come from it from the perspective of a parent more so than anything else, because I am a single mom. So for me, there is a level of authority, right, that I have because I'm my children's mother. Now, here's the difference. There is no power, right, behind that authority without responsibility because it requires my children's will. And that's what people miss when it comes to submission, when it comes to even like romantic relationships, right? If you have an expectation, right, for submission, which is to exert some type of authority that you feel that you deserve out of some type of respect, there's a responsibility that comes with that. And I saw that displayed just last year when my child was graduating from high school and preparing for college. It was during the pandemic still. And she was told that she could only invite 6 individuals. She was 18 years old at the time, so the decision was 100% completely hers. And even though she has respect for who her father is, at this particular point in time, he wanted to be one of the 6. Right? But there's a level of responsibility that you must have if you expect to exert your authority, because your authority, when it comes to a relationship that includes more than one person, is going to require will somewhere along the line. And you cannot force will on anyone, which is why a part of why even the laws get so misconstrued when we try to force will, on other people, saying, okay, you can't do this with your body. Oh, you can't be this, you can't be that. And me being a Christian, and I listen to all this, and I know exactly why the world is at odds with each other, because we want to require people to fall under authority in places that we don't have that authority, right? Because we don't have the power to carry it out because it requires someone else's will. And so for me, like being a mother, I expect that me and my children should come into agreement because they are in my household, because I am their mother, and because I carry out my responsibility, which allows me now to exert the authority that I have, because they are now willing, because they know that, okay, mom is really looking out for me, right? Mom still has authority. She is practicing and the responsibilities that comes with the authority of her being my mother, of her, so I find it very easy for me as a parent to get my children to come in line and agree with me, right? When I exert my authority and to the things I want them to submit to, right? My daughter is going to college. She wanted to choose her own major, right? I had to sit down and have a conversation with her. She's very artistic. She loves fashion, etc. I mean, if it would be her 100% dream. And I'm just sharing from my perspective, because my job and my responsibility is to also prepare her for the realities of this world. I am never going to be the parent who's going to be like, support your kid 100% no matter what they want to do. I will not be that parent. I am the parent who is going to guide and teach and lead my child. And if I have done that well, and if I have done that with the authority that I have, with the responsibility that comes along with that, my hope is that they will come into agreement because I'm able to explain to them out of love, right? And out of the responsibilities that I've carried for them, that I have always done what is right for you. I have always tried to do my best for you. And so if mommy is saying this and so is saying this, there's going to be, my children aren't going to yield to just anyone, especially if someone comes and says something that mommy didn't say. There's going to be some conversation because they're going to be like, well, wait a minute now. You're saying this, but my mom always said this, right? So they come into agreement with the things that I desire for them very easily, right? So my daughter and I had that discussion about what her major will be, right? And the reason that I could have that discussion with her is, number one, I have the authority because I'm the one paying. Remember what I said, there's responsibilities that come with authority, right? So she has to first understand why I have the authority to help her make this decision. And that's why I said to you, when other parents, everybody's got to parent how they parent. I parent from a place of authority and responsibility, right? And there's a mutual respect that my children have for me because they see that. They know I'm not just talking it. My daughter knows, right, that if she goes off to school and we're in agreement that this is what she's doing, she knows that she's not going to have to worry about how to pay for it, how she's going to make it there, because I'm going to carry out my part, and then she's going to come into agreement, right, and carry out her part, which is she's got to come with some grades that is worthy of me continuing to invest my money, right? And so I think that when it comes to relationships, people are desiring things from people without understanding that there's responsibilities that comes with that. So a man wanting a woman to submit, but not carrying out his responsibilities, he ends up not having that authority, because guess why? It's not because he's not deserving of it because of his title or what. It's because if you're not carrying out the responsibility, the person who you're trying to get to come into agreement with you, their will is not going to, you're going to have a conflict of will, right? And so, if people just understand that this word, there's nothing wrong with the word submission. There's nothing wrong with authority, right? But those things are going to come with responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for people to submit to people who are responsible. I ask any woman, if a man is doing and taking care and making her feel safe and secure, I've never seen a woman have a problem with submitting. When a man, right, is in fact leading and in fact carrying out the responsibility, just like a child, right? Right? I mean, you have, as a parent, I always look at myself first, right? If I'm having a difficult time with having my children show me what I feel is a level of respect that I deserve as their parent. Okay. So why is it that you feel that it's okay to speak to me this way? Why is it that you feel that you can make these decisions without, my influence? Like, how do you see this going? We have open dialogue and conversation, because at the end of the day, for me, agreement is the most important thing, because guess what? In this particular relationship, there comes a point where I will no longer be able to exert my authority over them because they will become what we call independent, right? And so if I didn't make agreement the goal, once they become independent, everything that I've taught them will go right out the door, because it wasn't something where they understood that this is right, right? And I'm going to agree with mom on this because I can see and I can understand why mom is coming with this approach. I can see and I can understand that this is going to work for me because I watched how mom did it. I've listened to her in the past and I've seen it play out. So if all I want to do is exert authority over my kids, over the moment that they're not under my roof, they take a different path. Right? But I don't expect that to happen with any of my children, because the way that I exerted my authority is by carrying out my responsibility, right? And making sure that when we get to a place of mutual submission, right, that there is mutual agreement and understanding, because in all you're getting, you've got to get an understanding. And if people aren't understanding what submission is for me, if you focus on the intent, right, all the other stuff becomes a little bit easier. The intent is that we agree, because when we agree, that's when we can move forward. If we can't agree, then we're at a constant place of conflict, and you cannot move forward. This is why these marriages are always choosing irreconcilable differences when they file for divorces, right? That's what they're always checking off, because they can't move forward because they can't come into agreement.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of mutual submission.
I love those points you made, and I want to just really quickly go back, and then we're going to jump into the subject here today. So I want to reiterate, this is not a biblical conversation. I think all of us are capable of having a biblical conversation, but this is not a biblical conversation. In fact, I studied sociology. What I understood, first thing we do, we get together, agreement, laws, rules. We have to have that for us all to be saved. So I want to reiterate that submission is not a biblical concept. In fact, if you look at the world, the nation of Israel was a small part of the world, but other nations existed when Israel was in existence. Egypt, tons of other nations existed. These nations did not function according to biblical law, but they had monarchies. Egypt had a pharaoh, and trust me, everybody in Egypt had to submit to the pharaoh. We had dictators, we had kings. So even on a secular level, submission is a requirement of existence, because we have, in order to socialize, there must be submission. Now, we're going to talk about, does it go both ways in regard to relationships? But parents, I've loved the fact that you brought up your experience as a parent. I will say this publicly. One of the reasons why I love Jason Monroe is he's not only an excellent partner, but he's a great parent. Right? This man, I've listened to him and watched how he's parented. He's not perfect, right? But I love how he parents his children. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, Jay. I told you I'd put you on the spot. And I think I have a son who's 21 years old, and I was thinking about him last night. He's never going to watch this, but I mean, I appreciate the fact that I've never had to challenge my son to submit to my will. Never have I ever had to do that. In fact, I can recall very little situations where he's been disrespectful. I'm grateful for that, but it's again a relationship where mutual submission is required. You know what I'm saying? And I think I talked about it last week. Employer-employee submission is required. Driving, you must submit. Right? We have a situation right now all over the world with COVID, and what we see is people rebelling or preparing, having conversations that lead to revolt. I was in a country. I spent some time in Grenada. Fact is, I was 14. I was in the military, technically a child soldier, or whatever. But the bottom line is, you have to understand how the seeds of revolution start. They start by having some of the conversations we are having, highly critical of leadership, and what we're seeing globally is that's what's being created. Our world is having a huge problem with the fact that we cannot find noble, moral leadership with integrity. It's very difficult to find it, and as a result of that, people are just, choosing not to submit all over the place, and all we have is a revolving door of leadership. What this conversation is about, again, as I love how Shoshana put it, it's about showing that the word there's nothing wrong with the word, and it is the essential component of our existence. Michelle, we're going to say yielding for you, girl. All right, because what we okay, I'll let you hop in. What are you going to say?
It's just, for me, I thought we were dealing more with the man and the woman sort of relationship. I definitely understand.
Go ahead, you can do that. You can go there.
Because I definitely feel the same way. I have kids too, and my kids are like in their 20s, and absolutely they respect me. And yes, everything is a choice. But when it comes to a relationship, it's a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different ballgame. So I don't know if we can kind of focus on that point, like, so we can really get to the core of, is the submission only, there's a question, is submission only for the wife, yes or no? I want to get into that, like delve into that.
Go ahead, jump into it.
Somebody had their hands up. Go ahead.
Okay, so here's the deal. And this is where, like I said, this part will become a little bit biblical for me. You know what I mean? But it's also the best way to understand it, just, at the simplest level, right? So that whole entire scripture that people use that discusses submission, there is a passage in it that people miss. It says, husbands, love your wives as Christ has loved the church and gave himself for it. To me, that is the ultimate submission. So any man who says he's not called to submit clearly does not know what that scripture means, because clearly it's not speaking about your physical life, right? because we know that he rose from the dead, right? So it's talking about dying to his own will, dying to his ego, right? Because this is where it comes in, where some of the times I see, when I talk about responsibility, sis, right? Everybody knows that things can happen in life that can bring about changes in a relationship that will bring, challenges, especially financial challenges, right? And I've seen where a man is constantly, quote unquote, I've seen relationships break up because of this. It ends up being money is the root cause at the end of the day, is what everybody thinks. But it really came down to his lack of submission. And let me explain what I mean by that. Every day, oh, honey, I sent out more resumes today. I sent out more resumes today. I sent out more resumes today. While a woman, his wife, is carrying the brunt and the burden of everything, right? Mutual submission would have been, she simply said, well, we just need something to get by right now. I know something's coming, right? If he had died to his ego and his will and just gotten something to help get them by, just to help to relieve some of that pressure and some of that stress, right? This is, instead of I'm sending out resumes, she's saying to you, I need some help. She's not saying to you it has to be that you have to take everything back over, or she needs some help. So a man needs to submit to his own. If your wife is saying, I need help, you need to get up and help, right? And how do you do that? You have to submit to your own ego, right? Or whatever it is that's causing you to not get up to give her that help that she needs, right? So I've seen marriages break up because of that. And ultimately, all his wife really wanted at the end of the day, I saw it, but he couldn't because his ego wouldn't let him. It's just some help, right? She knew that he was not as educated as she was. You know what I mean? So she wasn't expecting the world. She just wanted him to show that, hey, yeah, I'm willing to go and flip burgers. You know what I mean? To take a little pressure off of your back. So he'll tell everybody, oh, she left me because I lost my job. No, she left you because you didn't make her feel safe. You didn't make her feel like you would do what it took, even if it meant flipping burgers, right? To make her feel safe. So definitely, submission is mutual. It's dying to oneself. It's giving of oneself, right? Because there are things you will not agree on. So you have to now die to yourself, to your will, to your desire, whether it's the man's side or the woman's side, throughout different points in your relationship, to be able to, again, what's the goal? Agree so you can move forward. Otherwise, you end up in constant conflict and you end up with an irreconcilable breakdown.
And I think, again, you reiterating the point of moving forward, the reason I bring this up as well, I think we've all seen it. We've all seen the breakdown of relationships, not just marriages. All relationships break down because they're incapable of coming to agreement. So we ask ourselves, how do we do this? What do we look at? And when I looked at it, I thought submission. Nobody wants to submit. Nobody. Now, again, within certain contexts, some people have to submit in a situation, some people don't. In a marriage, the wife is commanded to submit in a biblical marriage. Outside of a biblical concept, the wife can do whatever she wants to do, whatever agreement they have as a couple. But it's smart to marry somebody who will submit to you and who you can submit to as well. I've left women because I couldn't submit to them, because their reasoning, I couldn't submit to it because I couldn't trust their reasoning. Right. Jason, I think every relationship I've been in for the last decade, I've talked to Jason about it. So, we've been through a lot of stuff. He's actually my go-to person. He's my reasonable person. But the thing about it is, yeah, you have to be able to submit to the person and be able to ask yourself, can this person submit to you? It has to, because submission is not about one person. I made the argument, and it's so funny, Shoshana, listening to you, I'm like, she said, it's like our thinking is so aligned, right? I want to hear Jason's thoughts after, and Renford as well, because you guys are just quiet. Shireen, I know you got a sore throat, but the thing about it is, I wish people could get this. And I think what happens is I think some people get it, but they resist it. But the other point I want to make is that so you mentioned that scripture in Ephesians, Shoshana, and you're so right. Like it is hard, it is more to give up yourself, right? And 1 Corinthians 13 actually said that though love is not selfish, it's not self-seeking, right? So if a wife is supposed to submit to a husband in everything, and a husband is supposed to love his wife, then a component of that is that he's not supposed to be self-seeking in that love. So the things that he calls his wife to submit to are the things that God requires them both to submit to in order to be pleasing to him within a biblical concept. Outside of that, again, people do what they want to do, but I think we really need to look at this as a society and identify the fact that it is a huge problem in our society. I'm going to open it up. Who wants to throw in some thoughts?
Jump in just quickly there. Couple things. My word for last year was curiosity, and my word for this year is trustworthiness. And I think they both apply here. And the reason I'm saying that is curiosity is finding out about someone, right? When you're in a relationship with someone, you can never stop finding out about them. And I'm going to bring it back to the point of what we're talking about. If you are God and you are omnipotent and you know everything, there is no need to be curious because you already know. You are the author of all of these souls, right? So we can, if we agree on that, it's fine. If you're in a relationship with someone, you cannot know where your partner is week to week because your partner's changing, the world is changing, you're changing. And when we get into trustworthiness, I love the word because it's like, who is worthy of your trust? Who are you? Who has earned the right for you to be vulnerable with? As much as JP and I are friends and there's things I talk to him about, there are tons of people I won't even talk to, let alone listen to about things. And we're in a position culturally, and we don't have a lot of time, so I won't go too far back, but we're in a position culturally where we're not trained to listen to each other, even in what is supposed to be a committed, romantic, passionate relationship that we call marriage. So if you're with somebody and you're going to say, I'm not listening to them, this is not just biblical, this is science. When I took my marriage counseling course, I can't remember the number, but the number for men the stat is if men listen to their wives, the marriage is happier, the marriage lasts longer. And by listen, it means don't give suggestions, don't solution, listen to her input, take her wisdom in. It is a partnership. And it's not, I understand the children example. I think it's great. I wouldn't have made it because then the issue becomes, it's not an equal relationship. And I think that we have to be careful when Jesus is the model for something where we can't be Jesus, right? Like, I'm going to strive to be sacrificial and giving and loving, but I'm never going to achieve that level with my partner. So when she's talking to me, I should listen because I don't know where she's coming. I don't know where her heart is. We say it all the time in Pan-African culture. God knows my heart. Nobody else knows your heart. So when you're talking to your partner, the way you're discovering their heart is by listening to them. And we have to listen. And we have to be willing to admit that we're also not perfect. So it's not just about being all-knowing. It's about being right. None of us is always right, which means at some point you're going to have to yield or submit, whichever word you want to choose. I don't use the word with the people I work with because now we're talking about 5 extra sessions to get past how people feel about the word submission. So I use trustworthiness and vulnerability to talk about submission. I don't know if that helps, but that's my 2 cents on it.
Can I interject? Are you hearing me? Everyone is hearing me? Okay, great.
Yeah, you sound great. You sound great.
Yes, okay, great. Brother, we talk about like husband, love your wives, and right through the Bible, there's a consistent theme of love. For God so loved the world, love one another, love your neighbor as you love yourself, love your enemies. It's 1 Corinthians 13 talk about love. If you speak with I believe that the whole essence of life is about love, loving relationship. But what is the definition of love? If you ask, there are like 8 billion people on the planet, and if you actually take them aside one by one, they would have given you 8 billion different definitions of love. And love, according to the Bible, Ephesians 3, is the foundation upon which we build our lives. And if we don't understand what love is, we're husband, like you said, husband love your wife, but what does that mean? Like, that's like, what does that mean? So a number of years ago, I was invited to talk at a church, or I don't call it, I don't regard, so just like Shoshana, I'm moving away from referring to myself as being a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And I don't fit the religious model again, basically speaking. So I was asked to talk, and I was gonna talk about love, forgiveness, and unity. And the Lord dropped in my spirit a definition of love that I've never heard before. And I've actually shared with everybody, and everybody seemed to agree with it. And I've never heard it before. And I think maybe you're going to hear it for the very first time. You have never heard it. And I want to throw it out there. So and it applies whether it's in a husband and wife relationship, if it's a children, it's like strangers. In fact, this definition of love would fit any situation, because most times people, for our understanding, we think love is an emotion, something that you feel. So if you're not feeling it, that means you're not really in love again. And so you have people who are in a relationship and they don't feel like they felt on the honeymoon night. So they, okay, I'm out of here. I don't love you again. I'm gone. So here's the definition. So just think about it in the context of maybe a husband or a wife or whatever you want to apply it. And it goes like this: true love. And I'm going to emphasize when I say true love, because I understand and God gave it me this way, and he said, no, true love. So there's true love, and there are different kind of love, and there's like fake love, basically speaking. So true love is always acting in the best interest of others, without any expectation of reward, repayment, or recognition. All right? True love is always acting in the best interest of others. So if you're married and you're a husband, are you always acting in your wife's best interest? Or if you're a wife, are you always and it's a tall order. And this is the type of love that God asks for us, and this is the type of love that we need in society, basically speaking. Always acting in the best interest of, it has nothing to do with your emotion. In fact, the opposite of love to me is not hatred, it's selfishness. Yeah, where people looking out for their best interests. And this is the problem in society right now, and it has permeated every aspect of life, where people are selfish in relationship, just looking out for themselves. In society in general, they say this current generation right now, they are the most privileged, but the most selfish. And so it's about, and so it said, it's about iPhone, iPad, it's about, so even this week I was talking to somebody, very intellectual person, and he hit the nail on the head, something that I've been saying. It said these days, relationships now are transactional. It's what you can get out of me and what I can get out of you. And I have done an informal survey of many young people in Jamaica, not many. And you know what they say? Love, there's nothing called love. In fact, they say they get irritated. They said, so you are a girl now, it's what you can get out of this guy. And if he's not giving you what you want, you get two other guys, one for your hair, one for your nails, one to take you out, and one to give you good sex. All right? And he knows that going in, that it's money running thing. They tell you, I'm down here talking to every single one of them. He knows that it's transactional, so he makes sure that he has money to give you to get what he wants, sex. And in the back of his mind, he knows that you may have 4 more persons lining up behind him. So there's nothing called commitments again. It's transactional in nature because we are living in a selfish generation. In Timothy talking about, in the last days perilous time shall come because men shall be lovers of themselves. We are living in the most selfish generation right now, and it permeates every aspect of life, from family to work. If you have a motor vehicle accident right now and somebody dead, somebody's killed, rather than trying to, you know what they do? Take out their cell phone and start to take selfies to put it around the world. All right? Rather than giving up. So we are in a generation, and I'm going to finish, where there's no, I'm not going to say no because that's extreme. True love is an endangered species by virtue of the definition that I gave. And that is the problem. Because let me tell you something. You can actually, do you know that you can be in a relationship with somebody and it falls apart, but you still make it, and this is what many men don't do. Like, just because they're not in a relationship with a woman again and not having sex, they stop giving them money for the children.
True.
So that's not true love. So stand up to your commitment. Like I have a saying, like I know that the Bible said, you know, I don't care how many baby you have out there. The response, the meat of the matter is, are you taking care of them? See, when 2 people get together, and we know it's not biblical, when 2 people get together, if you get together, mutual consent and have children, you should take care of the byproducts. So I know a man in Canada, and I'm very good friends with him. He has 12 children with 7 different baby mothers. And I'm best friend. I love that man. You know why? This man slave day and night, all 5, 6 jobs, take care of them, do anything to take care of his children. And they love him. His girls love him. They're hugging him up. Because that's what matters to them. He stands up to his responsibility, as Shoshana is saying. So we need some real men in the society. I have a wild imagination, and I said I'm going to start a group called Real Men. You know, and we have a T-shirt, say Real Men. I say real men take care of their children. Real men, yeah. There are some men out there who are not real men. And you know what the problem is? The ladies need to start to make better choices. Because many times you bypass red flags.
Oh boy.
He lives with his mother. Red flag. What kind of work you do? Me a hustler. Red flag. There's a video going on like that. Red flag. Red. So sometimes the ladies are complaining. Now, in my mind, I'm saying, who made that choice? Like, where was your brain? And I'm not beating up on the woman, but we need, John Paul mentioned something about choice theory. I actually did some research, and I actually believe it's a theory from the Bible. The Bible, we must take responsibility for the choices that we make, basically speaking. And I know I'm rambling, but the point I'm trying to say that, to recap, yeah, we need to really truly look at real love and what that really means. So that even if I'm not in a relationship with you, I'm acting in your best interest. I'm acting in the children's best interest going forward. And if the men really truly love, I don't have nothing to do with emotion or whether you're in a relationship with them. Somebody get it out on the street and you're going to go help them. You're acting in their best interest. The prodigal son, and not the prodigal son, the good Samaritan, who didn't know the man from Adam was enemy, and he went. So who loved the man? The priest or the rabbi? No, the Samaritan. He acted in his best interest. Did he know him? No. Did he have affection for him? No. He went out there and acted in the man's best interest. And this is what we need in society right now. So the movement that I've started in Jamaica, right, is called the Love Revolution. Join the Love Revolution. And every day I'm going out there and said, we need to begin to act in each other's best interest, period. And 99.99% of the problem in the world would be solved right there if we begin to truly love people And that is my saying for today. All right.
Michelle.
So, on the real love aspect. And then you said something very important. The reason why and a couple things, reason why we don't have real love in relationships, these are my opinion. One, as you said, selfishness. What can I get out of this? I can't get anything out of it. I'm gone. The next one is we settle too often. When I mean settle, you know that there's things that within your heart and your mind that you don't want in a relationship, but you settle. You know what? I don't really want a guy that smokes, but he's a nice guy. You know, I want a guy that, you know, that's gonna be there for me. Maybe he calls me once a week. He's settling, but he's really nice. You know, he hits me, but he loves me, right? So we settle. And when we settle for these things, it becomes a problem in a relationship. And then when it comes to issues like that, people don't know how to solve it. And they sit and they sit and they sit and they call it love. That ain't love. Right? Let's not confuse love. I'm just gonna give an example of love and obsession. Just tell you how love can get so misconstrued in people's mind. I was dating this guy years ago. This guy, if I said to him, I'm going to my daughter's school, before I got to the school, he was sitting in front of the school. Why? Get what I'm saying? If I said to him, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, he's there. My cousin and I came over to his house and we were decorating the bathroom and blah, blah, blah. The guy was crying. I'm like, why are you crying? Oh, you're ignoring me. I learned the difference between love and obsession. Same thing. Those are settling. Oh, because he loves me, I don't want to see the obsessive nature of him. So I think like real love, I would love to be able to attain that, right? I think anybody wants to be able to attain that. But you have to really come to the point where, is this really what I want? Be honest with yourself. When you can be honest with yourself, you'll find that you'll be able to love better, love more. Once you settle and you turn a blind eye to all the red flags as you mentioned, that's a problem. That is a serious problem. When it comes to, and I'm going to go back to the submissive part. You see, when you don't love yourself or don't truly love the other person, how can you truly be submissive? And that's where, as I said to you, I have a problem with that, because the way people have these high expectations of what a relationship should be, right? Get me here. They have expectations that they're not even willing to give. They want it, but they cannot give it back. So when it comes to, okay, well, I'm your husband, so you have to do this. You have to do that. When I come home, you got to cook. Listen, I said to a guy I was dating, I'll cook, but I will not cook every day. I work. Get into the relationship, he's like, oh, how come you're not cooking every day? But I explained that to you. You guys get where I'm coming from? I explained that to you. So if I explain to you this is who I am, then it has to be mutual understanding to be like, okay, Michelle, you did say that to me up front. Why is your expectation greater than what I told you that I could give you? So in relationships, there's so many red flags that we got to be careful for. And as I said to you, people can submit, but it has to be mutual submission where I'm going to give to you, you're going to give to me. But I find that in today's society, it's so one-sided because of selfishness. And because of their selfishness, how can you submit when there's just selfishness and everyone out for themselves? That's my 2 cents.
So I want to. It's 1:08 right now. We shouldn't be too much longer. If somebody needs to jump off, let me know. But I want to sort of transition us into. I want to do 2 things here. So basically, I think we're in agreement that submission has to go both ways, and it really should go both ways, secularly and biblically. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes,
right. So that's the goal of the show, was to just determine that question, right?
We'll all submit to you in that understanding, yeah.
Yeah. But what I want to do is I want to do this. So people may wonder, like, why do I have these conversations? Why do I write the things that I write? And I'm going to share this with you because I think what came out of this show is what I wanted to come out of this show. Submission is something that we do when we socialize with each other. The fundamental problem we see that causes a lack of submission is an issue of morality. Correct? Morality is defined as principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong or good and bad behavior, right? So we talked about trust. We talked about, mutual, right? Like what we're talking about is a person's integrity, their morality. Jay, I'm going to give you the mic now. So what I want to do is I want to transition this conversation into a conversation around morality, because I believe morality is something that we have to look at in our society and ask ourselves the question is, what is the impact of not having a structured guide for morality? I'm going to pass it to Jay. If you want to jump off, just interject and say goodbye. Please don't just jump off. But we're going to continue the conversation for a few more minutes. Jay, go ahead.
I was really saying bye to Shoshana because she said she was going to jump off. That's it. So that was me waving bye. Well,
Shoshana, before you leave, last words before you leave, Shoshana. And I loved your thoughts. Before Shoshana leaves, I want to invite you guys. So I had intended to continue these conversations and have them evolve. As I said, I want to have a conversation on morality. Jason and I and a couple of others, we're going to be doing some work on trauma, but I definitely want to continue this conversation. So I want to welcome you all back, and we can discuss that in the inbox. But Shoshana, Shireen left. Was it Shireen or Shoshana that was leaving?
I think it was Shireen, but I do. Yeah, but I do.
Don't ask the dyslexic. I saw the S.
It was Shireen.
Well,
yeah.
Well, basically, guys, I think it's been a great conversation. Okay, Shireen. Shireen, I'm sorry, I didn't. I'm going to have to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I got to wind up.
I wanted to give her a chance to say something, but she was having a problem with her throat there.
Mm-hmm.
But I absolutely love the comments and the conversations and the thoughts, and I think, it really is important that we come to some decisions around what we're actually going to stand for as people, because the lack of actually having a position causes a problem when we see the erosion of our society and our values, etc., and the high levels of conflict that are present as well. So I want to just basically say that. Thank you guys for being here. I'm going to let the ladies. Now, it's actually funny. I noticed that the guys are all on top, and the ladies, I don't know how that happened. That was not my doing. So for anybody who's watched this show critical of that had nothing to do with me. That was just StreamYard doing its thing. But I think it's because we were on first.
Nobody reads into what you just. I hope nobody reads into what you just said. I
hope so too. Especially when we're talking about submission, But I want to let the Shoshana, ladies have the last word, and then we'll also sort of close out the show then. So Michelle, you want to go first?
No, I'm just saying I still don't like the word submit. Let's not even playing the games here. But I agree with one thing. If you're in a relationship and you're both willing to submit to each other, all power to you. Final thought.
All right.
There's just so much, to be said about this, but I still believe that it all ultimately comes down to meeting and agreeing. And even the last thing that Michelle said before her final thoughts, where she clearly talked about the settling and the expectations. I believe that also stems into the whole just not agreeing, right? How can I expect something from someone that is not in line? So you're going to expect a whole lot from people if they are coming up short. See, if you're choosing a spouse who already meets your needs, and that's what the Bible uses, right? The Bible uses the word help meet. Somehow it got misconstrued into help mate. And there's a huge difference between a help mate and a help meet, right? A helpmate is anybody who can help you do something, right? So if I'm with somebody and he's a helpmate, let's say that I like to fix things. It's so bad that this is my example, right? Especially when you're talking about submission, right? If I'm putting up some drywall, right?
You put up drywall?
I do everything. I do a little of everything. So I'm putting up some drywall, right? And anybody who comes in, anybody can be a helpmeet, right? A helpmate, I mean, but a helpmeet is specifically a suitable partner, a suitable and worthy helper, right? They have the qualifications as well, right? And so that's where this whole expectations and this whole disagreements and stuff comes in, is because people are settling. They're not finding people who meet them where they are, because it's the goal is to agree. The goal, like I said, for submission is agreement. It's going to be very hard to agree with people who are not at the same level as you, right? Whatever that might be. So that's why I find that there's women who are educated that won't date men who don't also have education, and vice versa, right? It's not that all things need to be equal, but it's much harder to agree when things are not equal, right? One of the things that I avoid is dating men who don't have college degrees, because I already did that. And what I learned is, while I'm teaching my kids education, they're like, well, look at me. I'm so successful. I'm making all this money and I didn't go to school. So now we have a disagreement. And we have a major disagreement. We have a major disagreement concerning our child. Because this is what I'm pushing and advocating, and this is what you're pushing and advocating. So it's not that I can't marry someone, right, or be with someone who is not completely equal to me, but it's very difficult because now you have silly disagreements. So the whole settling thing, sis, you're absolutely correct. But it comes down to making sure that you're not dating someone with expectations of, I see our future, but hey, right now, right where we are already a force. We've already done the work on ourselves. And the Bible also already says, build your business and then build your house. But nobody teaches that, right? So everybody's doing the opposite, especially in the church. They're forcing these kids to get married long before these kids have even built anything. When scripturally, it's in Proverbs, build your business, then build your home, right? So we should be teaching these kids, you have no business getting married this young. Right? But we do the opposite. We tell them, go run to the altar. But that's a different topic. The point I'm making, though, is it all comes down to agreement, right? Whether and when you choose someone that you can agree with, not in the future, but right now, you help that relationship to move forward even at the very beginning, because already you're choosing someone that you can submit to and that can submit to you. Because you're already on the same page. You already have similar values. You already have the, similar, statuses and whatever that is, whether it's financial, whether it's, and I'm sorry, but that's just the fact of the matter. Whether people want to agree with it or not, like being equal just makes it easier to agree.
Yeah.
And you can't walk with somebody that you don't agree with.
There is always a question beyond ever comment, like, why are we settling then?
Various reasons.
Renford, do you want to say final thoughts, and then we'll have Jay, and then we'll close it out?
Yeah. Yes, I think I've said enough and I don't want to dominate. I'm listening. I'm putting my 2 ears into action, listen twice as much I talk. So it's very interesting, and I know that this is not the finality and the completion. This matter is so deep, and so on such an issue, even in the African American community, where it's like, yeah, it's a real issue and a real problem. And but I'm very happy that we have started this conversation, and I know that we can't do it ad infinitum, but it's a good start. It was great listening to the various perspective, and it's great kind of where people are coming from. So I'm very happy. So yeah, that's it for me.
Jay?
Yeah, thanks for hosting this, JP. Good points from everybody. Always good. The only thing I'd say, I think, yeah, it opens up a Pandora's box of other questions and points that we could talk. We could talk about what a good match is, and that would be a whole topic on its own. So I won't go down the rabbit hole today. JP knows I love to go down rabbit hole.
I listen. You know what I gotta say though. Every time we sit down and talk, like I've never sat down and talked with you and left thinking, man, why did I waste my time? Like never. That's why you're here.
You haven't talked to me
So,
enough.
I mean, I think
if you know what it is, you like to bring up topics that have meat on them, JP. So don't give all the credit to me, because some people will bring up foolishness. So thank you for having us today. I think I've said enough too. For me, it's very much about back to the trustworthiness. If you want to be in a good partnership, you have to, I think, back on what everybody said today, was you have to earn your partner's trust every day. And you have to be curious enough to know about the new direction that you and your partnership is going in regularly. It can't just be when things go wrong. So if you want to have submission, which I think we mistake for control, dudes need to get rid of this mentality that you have to be under my control.
Absolutely.
Right. And we need to get into a place where, well, yes, we need to be going in the right direction and we should all submit to that. But what the nuance behind what the right direction is, you're not the only one in a relationship with an avatar who has access to that information. So you should be open to, like Renford said, use your ear then. Anyways, thank you. Cheers.
Okay. Last thing I want to say before we close out is I mentioned it last week. I didn't mention it this week. I felt at the end of it's important to mention it. Again, I looked at the reason I chose to stay with the word submission is because my background in the military, my background as a son, as a father, every situation where I've seen a situation where I have to submit, it's a choice. And it's the most empowering place you can come from when you choose. I think Renford said he did a little bit of work on choice theory, but really, when I worked at mental health, what I tried to encourage people to do was to make small choices every day. Get up, wash your face, take a shower, go to the grocery store. Like everything is choice, and from a place of powerlessness to power is the choices you make. So submission is basically, it is your choice to submit. Nobody can force you to submit. It is the most powerful stance you can take in any context, in any relationship, because you're exerting your will in that situation and you're saying, okay, I'm going to let this go. Now, for me, if you're an idiot and I submit to you, you're still an idiot, but I've made the choice to not create conflict that you can't handle or I don't want. If you're my boss, I made the choice when I signed on the dotted line. I'm still in control. You see, I like to be in control and I like to be responsible for the effects of my actions and my existence and my will. So for me, when I choose to submit, it is me exerting my power in the situation. That's why, Michelle, I choose the word homie, because I feel it's an empowering word, just with a lot of negative conversations due to that. But listen, guys, thank you for the conversation. We did an hour and 22, a little bit longer, but there was 6 of us, and I think it was necessary. I will invite you guys back. We'll have a discussion. I want to discuss morality. I definitely want to discuss choosing partners, because I think that's important as well. That's about discernment. That's about a lot of other things that we need to discuss, more so for the Black community, I think. But again, this conversation is not a Black conversation, because everybody needs to learn to submit, and it's not about our culture alone. So thank you, and those are just some comments there, and we're done. I'm going to end the broadcast, and then hang on 1 second in the background there, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.